One of the most important concepts we really want to drive home from phase 2 is how when you remove the blocks from your subconscious that continually sabotage you and replace them with supporting beliefs, it's possible to not only make sobriety second nature, but it also creates dramatic changes in the other areas of your life as well. And once again, it isn't hard, and it can happen really quickly. Scott Schilling's story illustrates this really well. Scott's a salesman who lives in Texas and has been a student and now a friend of mine for years. And when he took his first workshop with me, Scott was unexplainably stuck at a certain level of income that he was not satisfied with. And no matter what he did, he couldn't seem to break through that barrier. And during the workshop, I led him through the exercise to identify and release your blocks. And during that guided exercise that takes you into a deep meditative state, Scott was able to go back in time to when he had just graduated from college and got his first job as a salesman in the same company where his father worked as a salesman. And when Scott received his first commission check, which was quite large, he proudly showed it to his father. But instead of his father being pleased and congratulating Scott on his success, Scott watched his father's face take on a pained look of deep disappointment and dissatisfaction, bordering on sadness and hurt. Scott felt bad that he had somehow caused his father pain, but he was mystified as to what had happened because his father walked away without saying a word. Later, Scott's mother told him that his father had felt bad because his son's first check was larger than the one that he'd gotten that month, especially since he'd been working at that company for a long time. It had brought up his feelings of not being good enough. And when Scott heard this, he felt bad because he loved and he idolized his father. And he made a promise to himself that he would never hurt his father again, and to assure that he would never make more money than his father did. Unfortunately, most of the decisions we make when we're younger get buried deep in the subconscious mind, and later, outside of our conscious awareness, they still control our activities. One part of Scott desperately wanted to make more money, but the subconscious belief that it was not okay was blocking that from happening. And the good news is that once Scott, who is now in his 40s, became consciously aware of that decision that he made and its destructive impact on his ability to earn a higher income, he was able to let go of that belief that it was not okay to make more money than his father because it might hurt him, and be totally clear that his success was not responsible for his father's feelings. He could still love his father and make more money than him. And as a result of that one exercise, Scott went out and made 1/5 of his previous year's income in just a few days after the workshop. And he's gone on to earn a high level of income ever since. This is why this kind of exercise, which we have included in this program and also do in our Breakthrough to Sobriety workshop, is so important in getting free and living a more effortless life. It's like discovering that you were driving with the emergency brake on. Now, to go faster with less effort, you have to release the brake. And the same is true in our life. And many of the tools that you're learning here, the meditations and affirmations and guided visualizations, are all part of releasing the brakes so that you can get to where you want to go faster and more easily.
Thanks, Jack. And I think most of us are able to relate to taking on certain beliefs and behaviors from our parents that no longer serve us, right? So for example, when my parents divorced at the age of 5, everything changed that I knew. I went from seeing my father every day to sometimes going weeks between visits. One result from this was a belief that I wasn't good enough to be loved. That just like how my parents' love for one another could change, others' love for me could as well. And to overcome this fear, I desperately sought to be seen and noticed by others, to be the center of attention, ultimately to be significant in the eyes of other people. But even though in retrospect it's very obvious, it certainly wasn't at the time because it was really operating out of my subconscious. And this impacted me until my 30s. Sometimes I would feel the need to be loved in significant and positive ways, which was great, doing favors, being generous, taking on big projects at work. But all too often, if I couldn't get the significance or attention I craved in a positive way, I would get it in a negative way. Whether that was through creating verbal conflict with others, maybe doing something intentionally I knew would really upset someone and get their attention, or even just being a drunk idiot. When I finally realized that the source of this was very normal and natural desire to be loved and to feel important and needed by other people, and that my parents' divorce had nothing to do with their love for me or possibly being able to even lose it, I was finally able to stop creating unnecessary conflict in my life. And many of these unconscious behaviors just faded away over time. We are confident that you too can experience these types of positive changes and so many more.